A very warm welcome to all our listeners around the world. You're welcome to the Tony TOKUNBO Fernandez show, a show that promotes the
Yep.
true life stories and the success stories of Africans and Caribbeans living in different regions around the world. If there's a product or initiative you want to promote, feel free to get in contact with us today on 0788 280 9005. That's 0788 280 9005. Take time to share the video, subscribe to the channel. It's all about promoting your voices, our voices, and the voices that matter in the community. Also, feel free to visit our website at www.tonyfernandez.co.uk as we aim to promote the true life and success stories of Africans and Caribbeans doing amazing work around the world. We have an amazing speaker in the house today, and we're logged into Liverpool today to speak to your Worship, Lord Mayor, Councillor, and Rothery. You're welcome to the Tony TOKUNBO Fernandez show. How are you today?
I'm wonderful, and thank you for the invite to your show, Tony. I've been really looking forward to the event.
It's such a pleasure. From time to time, we get involved in other initiatives. We also organize the Black History Month celebrations at the UK House of Parliament, and we hope to invite you
Yeah,
down one day. But
yeah.
for the benefit of all our listeners around the world, can you just tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and the things you're most passionate about in life?
Well, I was brought up in Liverpool 8, which is Toxteth. We've had our fair share of issues over, the history of the city. Um, Predominantly diverse community made up of African, Caribbean, um, Muslim, Somali, Yemeni, very diverse in terms of its makeup. A wonderful, vibrant part of the city. The diversity has been amazing. So I was honoured to be brought up with children from different faiths and cultures, which is an excellent start for anybody's life. My father's from the Caribbean.
Wow.
He passed away in the mid 60s. My mother's English, British white woman. I have four brothers, and we were a working class family, and so we came from, quite humble beginnings, and but working class. Mum worked, and so did dad. So we had a very strong work ethic as well, and also a very strong ethic for education. Education was always a route out of poverty for many communities back in those days, as it is today. Really passionate about community, really passionate about diversity within our community, making sure that we have representation from diverse communities around the equality agenda, but also around economic equality. So really committed to creating opportunities around education, employability, recruitment, selection, and retention of diverse members of the community.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And our show is all about promoting the true life and success stories of people doing amazing stuff around the world. When you look back into your past in years, what would you say are the defining experiences that kind of shaped or inspired you to be the woman, the great woman you are today?
Mm. Well, I think because education was always so prominent in my life, I was committed to learning. And I was very fortunate because when I was growing up, we had Objective One funding, which was the European funding that we all know of, was allocated to Liverpool. And so education was free for everybody who wanted it. I just, grasped every opportunity to get an education. And so I was really lucky. I did an access to sociology and psychology, law course. But I was also really fortunate because I was probably one of the few people who had the privilege of being taught around African history and
Beautiful.
studying African studies, which gave me a real sense of self and a real sense of place. In an environment where our achievements are often undeclared, It was an opportunity for me to get a real understanding of my, my history, my forefathers and mothers, and the real contributions that they made to society around sciences and architecture and all the amazing things. And for me, it was a great privilege to learn and understand that, because prior to that, all of the history that I knew about my ancestors was about enslavement. And, for me, this proved that we are not the sum total of enslavement. We made massive contributions in other areas of society.
That's fantastic. Looking back now as you're the Lord Mayor of Liverpool, what would you say are the proudest achievements so far that you hold very dear to your heart?
Yeah. I mean, becoming an elected member was, it was quite a task actually, because at the time when I was elected as I was the only black councillor in Liverpool for
Wow.
the first 6 years in 2006. I mean, one of the reasons why I stood was because of the lack of representation. That was the main reason, actually. We had very little diversity. Out of 94 councillors, there were no black councillors at all. There had been previously, but maybe just one at a time, never more than one councillor at any given time. And so for me, that was a crucial point. That was about being, a role model for people, to break down, the myths about politics. People think in our community, politics is not for us. It was an opportunity for me to demystify politics for people who ordinarily wouldn't consider going forward as an elected member. And, and to break down those barriers to becoming an elected member. I was given the opportunity to be part of Operation Black Vote, which is run by Simon Woolley in London, just before I became an elected member. So that was a great opportunity to get some background, some grounding in politics and understanding, the equality agenda from a broader perspective, not just from a lived experience. So that was quite crucial as well. And then I was also given the opportunity to go to Warwick University and study leadership, Black Leadership Programme. And so that was a massive opportunity to equip myself with the skills and the knowledge and know-how of how to be an elected member. And then in 2012, I was asked to speak at the United Nations, which was a massive achievement. And
Fantastic.
I was the first elected member to speak at the United Nations on religious, linguistic, and ethnic minority differences. That was the language that they used. Ethnic minority is not really in my vocabulary, but that was the language that was used then. So I was able to go to speak at the UN, and whilst talking about those issues, I was able to meet the Working Party for the People of African Descent, and so built up a really good, strong network there. And when they came to the UK, ordinarily they would go to London, but they stopped off in Liverpool and took evidence from Liverpool about the reality of being black in Liverpool. And so we were able to give them evidence around education, employment, health, the judiciary, and looking at all of the issues around diversity in a city that, historically had been, there was a lot of systemic racism and institutionalized racism. So it was a great opportunity for the city to be able to, give the evidence to the Working Party for People of African Descent. So I think those three things combined really were quite pivotal for me.
When, as Black people, when we find ourselves in positions of influence, how important would you say it is for us to represent the voices of diversity through our actions?
It is, yeah, yeah. It's crucial. I mean, I've always been very outspoken on the equality agenda. And, and because I feel as though I've been put in a place of privilege. But, for me, that place of privilege is for me to talk about the issues, the real issues that, impact on our day-to-day living, looking at things like the lack of employability, looking at the way we're treated as Black men and women, and opening up that debate and having that conversation, creating environments where we can draw people in to, to have some real honest and open and frank conversations about racism in all its forms and how it impacts on, our lives, from the elders to the youngest of society. The impact on us as a people, is a devastating impact. And so when you're given the opportunity to, afford an audience, then we really must use that time and that audience to speak about the issues that face us on a day-to-day basis.
How significant do you feel Liverpool is on the world map in terms of history, culture, and tourism? Also, remembering that in Liverpool itself, we also have the International Slavery Museum.
Yes. I mean, historically, Liverpool has played a role an era where it's not the best of our history. Obviously they were at the forefront of the transatlantic slave trade. A lot of the wealth in Liverpool came from the transatlantic slave trade. And that's not something that we can, just cast aside and forget. We have to remember that. The city did apologise for its role within the slave trade about 18 years ago. There was a formal apology. However, for me, how you make the recompense for me is how, we work within diverse communities now and afford the same opportunities for people of colour. And this is still a work in progress. And so when we look at culture and tourism and the standing of Liverpool internationally, we have a great place on a world stage. We attract a lot of tourists. We attract a lot of cultural events that come to the city. We fill our hotels with people. However, we haven't done anything in terms of our Black population, in terms of what we have to offer in terms of the cultural diversity. And that really has a massive role to play within the visitor economy for the city. And so, the last couple of years, it's been one of my areas of focus to look at how we support local Black businesses and how we assist. I've worked with the African Diaspora Heritage Trail, globally, and the work that they do in terms of creating wealth, across diverse communities. And so we also need to be focusing on how we give opportunities and make sure that the business opportunities and finances are there for Black businesses to look at culture. We've got a young man who does a tour around the historic buildings and around enslavement. But there are other things that we can contribute. It's not all about, we are not the sum total of enslavement. I firmly believe that. It is part and parcel of our history. But if we're not careful, it can still have the same constraints on us from moving forward. If we are perpetually being drawn back to enslavement, it stops us from progressing as a people. And so at some point you have to draw the line, and still honour and respect our ancestors for, the massive, injustice that was put on our people. But we also need to move our young people away from that. They have so much more to offer than, being constantly constrained by our history or the history that was put down for us. It's not our history in entirety. You mentioned that we've got the International Slavery Museum. Certainly some conversations that I've been having with the International Slavery Museum is about how do they move forward. Is it appropriate just to focus on enslavement, or do they now have, a duty to look at what we can be in the future as a Black community and concentrate their efforts there? I firmly believe that we should be doing that.
Your Worship, we're very proud of the amazing work you're doing in Liverpool and as a Black female role model, making a difference for people today and tomorrow and in the future. But rounding off now, are there any current initiatives you're working on at the moment in terms of like charity
Yeah,
initiatives, which you feel all our
yeah,
listeners around the world should know about today?
yeah. So I've got four charities as Lord Mayor. So it's the Liverpool City Region Pride, which is our LGBT community. Amadudu Women's Refuge Centre, which is for women and children fleeing domestic violence. And then I've also got the Merseyside Somali Association. The Somali community has been in Liverpool East for as long as I can remember, for decades. very firm part of our community, but still suffer a great deal of isolation and still quite insular in terms of their community. So, bringing them to the forefront is getting the, people to understand the Somali community and the charity to support it. And then Anthony Walker Foundation. Anthony Walker was a young man who was killed in Liverpool. He was murdered. And so people know about Anthony Walker Foundation. They do great work with young people in terms of, healing rifts, bringing around inclusion, bringing children together, making sure that they get an education, that they have a bright future to look forward to. So they're my 4 charities. But what I've recently been doing is also working with universities in the city. So I've just set up the first Black social workers program in many years. The difference between this course is that it's been about transformational change. So it's not just for students. It's about changing how we do business as a city. So the peer mentors are all from diverse communities. The practice educators are drawn from Black communities. And we've recruited a lecturer from diverse communities. So it's not just about a course, it's about how we do business. I'm also working currently on Black Teachers Programme. That will be done from Hope University also. That's to increase the number of Black teachers in our schools. We've got a very low proportion of Black teachers in our schools, which means that we've got very few Black role models for our children. So that's another crucial component. But then also working with employers, the Chamber of Commerce, Liverpool Bid and Professional Liverpool, to look at what we're actually doing to progress our Black academics. Once they've got the qualifications, what are we actually doing to make sure that they get employment in the city and we're able to retain them beyond 12 months or 18 months? Because historically, there's been a lack of progression routes in terms of getting up to middle and senior management. So I'm also doing work around that to make sure that once we've got qualified students, they actually get the jobs and they actually make that progression into senior management.
This is all amazing, and we'll continue to share this message on various platforms. We urge you to keep up your amazing work. It's so lovely to meet you for the first time today.
Yeah.
Keep shining, and it's just a simple pleasure.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to meet you, Tony, and to come onto the show.
Thank
And
you.
we have to keep doing everything that we do because there are so many young people, young sisters, young brothers. They were looking to us to lead the way and create a better future for them. So thank you very much for inviting me today.
It's a pleasure, and the change will always start and continue with us. Thank you so
That's
much.
right. Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you.